Good evening. What you just witnessed was the moment when the Sri Lanka army defused a bomb that was discovered today. At this point of time, News First wishes to thank, salute and commend our first responders, the three armed forces, the Sri Lanka army, the police STF, and very specially the bomb disposal squads that have been doing a remarkable service over the past 48 hours, putting their own lives at risk to safeguard ours. What you're witnessing right now is footage of the explosion that took place in Kochikade this evening.
Hello there, you're watching Primetime News. Now more details to follow on that. Ranjit said that he believes the law will be enforced over the multiple explosions that were experienced in the country yesterday.
Despite the pain caused to us, we must not inflict pain on anyone. We are not fully aware as to who is actually behind this. Just like the tip of the iceberg, we do not know the whole picture. Therefore, there might be a more powerful group behind this unfortunate group of youth. Maybe those involved might not belong to the said nationality. Therefore, we must not make this an opportunity to harass or assault anyone. This cannot be justified through any religious belief. At this point, I would like to state that after all funeral activities are completed, we must return to normalcy and reconcile with each other. If any wrong was committed by anyone, such individuals can only be punished by the law. We cannot punish anyone according to our wish. We cannot take the law into our hands. The law must be enforced. Punishing those responsible for the attack is the responsibility of the law enforcement authorities, and we believe they will fulfill their responsibilities. We express our deepest condolences at this moment. It was revealed that there was a pre-warning over the possibility of such an incident taking place. This was even revealed through the Prime Minister, while the statement made by a certain minister is proof in this regard. If this was known, why did they not prevent the attack, and why did they act in such a manner? This is a question all of us have. How can the father of a minister ask his son not to attend church? Why did the minister not inform the public? I cannot accept this. If the minister had a reasonable suspicion that such an incident may take place, if he did not go to church, he should have informed someone in this regard and prevented people from attending church. Regardless of the political party that comes into power, for God's sake, we request the government and its leaders to enforce law in the country and to further strengthen intelligence units and to ensure such efforts to create division in the country will not be repeated in the future.
Several religious leaders, MPs and ministers met with His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit this morning to express their condolences over the tragic series of attacks that took place yesterday.
The world is watching this tragic incident that took place in Sri Lanka. Let's face this crisis in peace. We express our deepest condolences to His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit and will provide our fullest support to him.
Former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa also called on the Cardinal Archbishop this morning. The Catholic Bishops' Conference has expressed their deepest condolences for the tragedy that took place with the dawn of Easter Sunday. The conference in its statement states that the attack destroyed hundreds of lives and was a tragedy. The Catholic Bishops' Conference also urges the public to remain calm and to act wisely and intelligently.
Army Commander Lieutenant General Mahesh Senanayake explained the current security situation of the country following his meeting with His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith today.
We do not have any legal obligation to act in this situation within the frame of the law of the country. We requested that authority to be given at the discussion. We requested the President to inform the relevant authorities to run an analysis and give us that permission as soon as possible. We have identified this organization and their network. We also discussed about the actions that should be taken against the personnel that have been identified already. We will further discuss and take actions on matters like what kind of international ties does this organization have, what connections do they have within the country, what are the areas they have spread to, and about their future plans. It is clear there has been some shortcomings from the information received through intelligence units. I am not saying that I am taking the responsibility for that on behalf of the Sri Lanka Army, but some things have not been done properly on a practical surface. I see through the decisions taken by the President, further investigations will be carried out under the integrated method in unison. In my view, that is what this country needs right now. All the intelligence units must operate in unison instead of operating on their own. The general public should remain calm. Please trust in Sri Lanka Army, who is trying to provide you with maximum safety without any political, racial, religious schisms.
ආරක්ෂා පිළිබඳව විශ්වාස ලබා ගන්න අපි ගැන කටයුතු කරනවා.
මේ ඔබතුමාලා බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන පරීක්ෂාව පමණක්ද එහෙම නැත්නම් පාර්ලිමේන්තුව හෙට රැස් වුණාම ඊට වඩා එහාට ගිය බලයක්
බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. අවසානයේ යුද හමුදාපති හැටියට මම කැමති කිටි කාලයට හරි හදිසි නීතිය යොදවනවා. ඒක තමයි බලතල තිබෙන්නේ.
මේ දැනට තිබෙන ප්‍රශ්නේ බුද්ධි තොරතුරු වාර්තා කිරීම පොලිසිය සම්බන්ධයෙන් වාර්තා කරා. යුද හමුදාවත් මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් වාර්තා වුණාද මෙම සිදුවීම් සම්බන්ධව වනාත විල්ලුවේ සිදුවීම මේක ඉන්ටිග්‍රේට් කරනවා නම් මොන වගේ යාන්ත්‍රණයක්ද ඇති කරන්න යන්නේ ඒකාබද්ධ කාර්යාලයක්.
මෙතනදී කාටවත් දෝෂාරෝපණය කිරීමට මේ අවශ්‍ය වෙන්නේ.
There is no point in reprimanding anyone. But honestly, the army was not aware of this incident. The police had been aware. This relates to the Vanathavilluwa incident as well. There are lapses in the communication. We have not been together in this journey.
පාඩුකම් තියෙනවා එකතු වෙලා මේ ගමන සිදු නොකරපු එක ගැන.
සාමාන්‍ය කොළඹ විතරද ආරක්ෂා හමුදා ආරක්ෂා වැඩි කරලා තින්නේ ලංකාව පුරාම.
උතුරේ සිට දකුණටත් බස්නාහිරට නැගෙනහිරටත්.
The army has been deployed from north to south and from east to the west. We will deploy more. I believe the situation will become normal. This group is a small group, but we cannot discard the fact that there could be an international involvement. But when you take a look at the materials that have been used at the training that these people have received, this could be provided in Sri Lanka or this could have been provided internationally as well. But if you take a look at the gunpowder use, it does not seem to be of international standard. But without an argument, the funds to manage an organization like this could have had international support. I cannot name anyone. There are many such organizations. This may have been carried out by a local group that is affiliated to this.
The terrorist who carried out the attack at the Shangri-La Hotel has been identified as Insan Silavan. The Vallampitia police submitted this information to the courts today.
The police today informed the court that a copper factory in Vallampitia under this individual's ownership has been raided by security forces. While 9 suspects were arrested, all of them have been presented before the Colombo Additional Magistrate Salia Channabe Ratna. The Additional Magistrate ordered that they be remanded until the 6th of May. The police informed the courts that they are taking measures to begin investigations to identify the link between these suspects and the explosions that took place. It was further revealed that both the wife and the brother of the suspect, Insan Silavan, were killed as a result of the explosions that took place at the home in Dematogoda yesterday. A woman and 2 children were killed when the woman detonated an explosive device at a house in Dematogoda, where suspects in connection to the explosions were believed to have been residing. The explosion took place when the authorities were raiding the house. The authorities added that another explosion took place when they attempted to arrest another suspect who was in the house. 3 police officers lost their lives as a result of these explosions. The police then arrested a man believed to be the father of the deceased and a group of women who were all in the house at the time. A luxury motor vehicle was found parked outside this residence with a water bottle with cinnamon grand branding. As police were continuing investigations into this vehicle and residence today, an individual was found recording the police's actions via mobile phone. He has been taken into custody. In a separate situation, 87 detonators were found on Bastian Mawatha in Peta today. Police officials stated that 12 detonators were found at the private bus stop in Bastian Mawatha, while a further 75 were found by a nearby garbage dumping area. A residence in Batagama North in Kandana was searched by the police. Security forces also searched an apartment complex on Templars Road in Mount Lavinia. Following investigations surrounding last morning's bombing of the Kingsbury Hotel, another individual has been arrested. The suspect is a Syrian national. The police also took steps to arrest an individual following yesterday's attack at an inn near the Dehiwala Zoological Gardens. A residence in Panudura was raided yesterday based on information received that those connected to the explosions were hiding at the location. Initial reports revealed that the house has been obtained on rent for a period of 3 months. Our reporters added that metal ball bearings and batteries used as explosive devices were found at the house. The police also questioned the owner of the property.
ගෙදර හිටියේ මූ නෙමෙයි. මූ අපි එනකොට මූ හිටියේ නෑ. අන්න තව කෙට්ටු එකෙක් හිටියා. දෙන්නේ කාවා. මේ කපල් දෙන්නම තමයි ගේ ඕනේ කියලා කිව්වේ. මම එන පාරේ මෙයා හිටියේ නෑ. ඔයාගෙන් ගේ ගත්ත මිනිහා නෙමෙයිද මේ? මීනේ නෑ. මෙයායි තව කෙනෙක් හිටියා. කෙට්ටු එක්කලා. දෙන්නයි තමයි කපල් දෙන්නෙක් නේ.
Meanwhile, a van that is suspected to have been used by the terrorists has been found on Ramakrishna Road in Vallawatha by the police. The police also took into custody a motorbike without an owner that was found in Papiliana, Attidia. 2 more suspects in connection to yesterday's bombings were also arrested at an inn in the Dambulla town. Interpol announced today that they too will send a team of experts to Sri Lanka to assist in the investigative process surrounding the bombings.
On a related note, the Indian Coast Guard has been placed on high alert along the maritime border to prevent any attempt by those behind the Sri Lankan blast to enter India. According to news agency ANI, a number of ships and drones, these are aircrafts used to conduct surveillance, have been deployed to identify suspicious boats along the maritime border. There are fears that the terrorists may try targeting locations in India if they succeed in sneaking across the border. Meanwhile, Interpol is deploying a team to Sri Lanka to assist the national authorities investigating the series of bombing attacks at churches and hotels. Checks are already being made against the organization's stolen and lost travel documents and nominal databases in order to identify potential investigative leads and international connections. Meanwhile, a bomb inside a suspicious vehicle close to the Kochikade church was defused during a controlled explosion this afternoon. The vehicle was parked along the road that leads to the church.
Now, the government has decided to declare an island-wide police curfew starting from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. tomorrow. Meanwhile, it has also been decided to gazette the emergency regulations relevant to the prevention of terrorism with effect from midnight tonight.
On a Twitter message, President Maithripala Sirisena said he has instructed all security personnel to take steps to eradicate all forces that support terrorism in the country. The head of state added that the situation has been successfully brought back to normal, and he also commended the support provided by the general public to the security forces. Meanwhile, President Sirisena called on Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith. The security board was convened this morning with the presence of President Maithripala Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. A decision was made to declare Tuesday, the 23rd of April, as a national day of mourning. The President's media unit said this measure was taken to ensure the security of the country and the people and empower the police and the tri-forces. Discussions were held on destroying forces related to yesterday's terror attacks and forces who assisted the perpetrators. President Sirisena said he hopes to convene all ambassadors and high commissioners to speak about the prevailing situation in the country. He also added that he has requested the international community to provide support in this regard. As intelligence services has reported, international terrorist organizations are behind the act of terror committed by the local terrorists, and international support is to be sought in order to exterminate them.
Issuing a joint statement, the bishops of Colombo, Kurunegala of the Church of Ceylon say they are shocked and deeply saddened by the barbarous acts of violence brought on innocent worshippers, children, women and men. The release says, "We call on the government to institute quick action to investigate thoroughly these incidents and to bring the perpetrators to justice, to ensure the safety of places of religious worship, and to prevent any individuals or groups taking the law into their hands or provoking acts of intimidation or violence against any community or group." Meanwhile, issuing a statement, the Assemblies of God of Ceylon says they pray for justice and pray that justice will be achieved for those who have been so wickedly wronged. Meanwhile, opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa convened a media briefing today to express his views on Sunday's bombings.
We are not satisfied with the steps that were taken by the government. This is because we were informed of this in advance. We had been informed via a letter. If the public had been informed of this, it may have been prevented. They could have asked the public to stay away from these locations, and the scale of the tragedy could have been mitigated. They must accept responsibility for this. However, at this instance, we must not point fingers at each other or at each other's communities. All of us must come together as one country to support the steps that are being taken now, and as a party we will support this and do our duty. This is a national problem facing the entire country. This letter was accompanied by an intelligence report. Half the intelligence service is in prison. Yesterday I told this group that if the others had also been imprisoned, it would have been worse. This report was provided by intelligence services. The problem is that even those who are left did not act in line with this report. The government had a duty to inform the public. I believe that one of the reasons for this is that police are not allowed to act on certain things because of an upcoming election.
Amongst those arrested is a businessman known as Alhaj Yusuf Muhammad Ibrahim. He was on the national list of the JVP for the 2015 election. His children have been involved in some of the suicide bombings. He has also had close ties with politicians like Azad Sali and Mujibur Rahman. You may recall that when explosives were discovered some time ago in Vanathavilluwa, Puttalam, I raised questions about it in Parliament, asking what was found and who was behind it, and it was Mujibur Rahman who was flustered and responded that I was seeing crocodiles in a wash basin. It was not crocodiles in the wash basin. It is very clear what is happening now. This was sent to VIP security units. It was not sent to my security detail, but it was sent to the security details of other VIPs. It was sent to him as well. This cites the prevailing threat. Why were no steps taken at all? In spite of knowing all this government is accountable for the 300 lives that were lost and the more than 500 people who were injured. They must take that responsibility.
They must take responsibility. Why did they not inform the people? How were the people arrested in connection with this released? One person was arrested and released by the court 9 months later. Why were the others not arrested previously? The police have a list of 90 persons. When they were acting on it, pressure was exerted from somewhere and it was stopped. This is the truth.
Harin Fernando says he did not go to church because his father had been informed by the CID. Is it enough for just Harin to be saved? When Harin's father was informed by the CID, he told his son that churches would be attacked. This means that they knowingly allowed this to happen.
The head of our security received this. He acted on it and did not inform us. If I was not aware of this, would I have gone to Nuwara? I would have been walking from church to church.
Let's now have a look at some of the stories behind the scenes recorded on our cameras yesterday.
8:45 a.m. last morning saw the Kochikade shrine stand still and silent. Along with it, silencing the lives of those who were there for prayer. In such a context, we saw how people were offering prayers for their dear ones who lost their lives. Yesterday's despicable acts of terrorism cost us a large number of lives. Every one of those lives have behind a story of their own. But such is the number of lives lost that we are unable to say their stories in a few minutes. Let's have a look at some of the stories of the people who were affected by yesterday's tragic events. You may remember this young girl who tried tirelessly to upstand her mother and father, who were laying on the floor of the church among countless bodies. While her mother has passed away, her father sustained serious injuries, leaving this young girl by herself. We made our way to Kochikade in search of her. Residents in the area informed us that she has been taken into the custody of an officer of the Coastal Police Force named M.R. Vishmapala. When we inquired with Kusuma Hettiarachi, who works at the foreshore police here, she told us the following.
One of our sergeants brought a child. The child was sent through another child and was handed over to me in the police guard room. The child was crying, asking for her mother. The child was not neglected. A police SP even brought chocolates and food items. But the child was asking for her mother. She even said her father was lying on the ground. So I told her mother had gone to the shop and that she will be back.
We then went to Wattala in search of an address of a relative that she remembered. There, we met 3-year-old Christopher Janita, who was living in a rented room with her relatives.
It was my relative who complained to the police that her child was missing. We showed the photos of our little ones to the police officer. He then said that her child was not found as yet. However, he said that he saw this little one.
These residents of Passara in Badulla don't even have the resources to transport the remains of this girl's mother to her residence.
It will cost a lot of money to take the body to Badulla, so I ask of you, please help them in any way you can. Please be a blessing to these people at this time.
We also went in search of the individual who had called the phone that was ringing following the blast in Kochikade. That call to Reagan Ruth had originated from the phone of Kanagalingam Ruben. I called my younger brother's phone, but he did not answer. Then I called the phone of his family members. It rang but was not answered by anyone. My brother, his wife and 2 children are all in the ICU. Meanwhile, American national Lewis Allen, who was at the Colombo National Hospital yesterday, said that both his wife and son were caught in yesterday's explosion. His wife died as a result. Mr. Lewis had contributed his personal wealth to develop the children's ward of the Ratnapura General Hospital, adding a number of new facilities. He had brought his wife down to the country to show her how the public are benefiting as a result.
Yes, I love Sri Lanka. We come all the time, and I built a hospital with some friends of mine from Ratnapura. We built a children's hospital in Ratnapura. And I was taking my wife and my children to see the hospital. And we had my son and her were in the restaurant having breakfast, and my son is injured and my wife passed away.
24 hours after Sunday's gruesome bombings, a media briefing attended by a number of ministers was held at Temple Trees today.
The real issue here is that the government was informed of this threat on the 4th of April for the first time. This was 17 days before this incident. On the 9th of April, the first document from the Ministry of Defence by Sisira Mendis on behalf of the Secretary of Defence was sent to the Inspector General of Police. Even the names of the suspected members of this terrorist organisation were included in this document. The names included
Al-Tal, Rilwan, Sajid Maulavi, Saeed, Millan and others.
On the 11th of this month, the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Priyalal Dasanayake, in charge of the VIP Protection Division, had written to the Ministerial Security Division, the Judicial Security Division, the Retired Presidential Security Division and the Ambassador Security Divisions regarding the matter. Only the Presidential Security Division and the Prime Ministerial Security Division was not informed of this. This is a massive lapse. The letter dated on the 11th informs the head of our security details to provide protection to us. The issue is on the measures taken on the national security. Even after receiving all the information on this incident, we failed to prevent it. That is what should be investigated first.
මේ සියලු තොරතුරු ලැබිලත් අපිට මේක වළක්වා ගැනීමට බැරි වුණා. ඒක තමයි ඉස්සෙල්ලාම හොයන්න ඕනේ. මතලෝමතික විදිහට ක්‍රියා කරේ ආරක්ෂක ප්‍රධානීන්ද එහෙම නැත්නම් ඔවුන්ට වෙන කවුරු හරි නියෝග දීලා දෙන්න. ජනාධිපතිතුමාත් එක්ක මේ සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න එපා. ඔවුන් කියලා තියුණා ඉහලින් ලැබුණු නියෝග අනුව බෑයි කියලා තමයි කියලා තියුණා. කවුද ඉහලින් කියලා නැතු? ඒක කියලා නෑ. ඒක ඔබතුමාට ආන්දෝලන කරන්න බෑ නේද? වැඩක් නෑ නේද? ඔබතුමා එහෙම බැලුවා. ඔව්. අපි මේක කතා කරගෙන දැන්
Since this is a great tragedy, we need to discuss these issues at the cabinet meeting at 6 this evening. The cabinet will convene and will be chaired by the president. We must ensure an incident like this does not happen in the future as a result of our faults.
ඒ වෙයිදී ඇත්තට මේවා අපි කතා කර ගන්න ඕනේ මොකද මෙවැනි සිද්ධීන් නැවතත් නොසිදුවන්නට අපේ අත්කරත්තේ. ඒ අවස්ථාවේදී පොලිසිය එක් දේවස්ථානයකට හෝ සංචාරක මධ්‍යස්ථානයකට හෝ කිසිම ආරක්ෂාවක් සපයලා දෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒතකොට වර්තමාන තත්ත්වයේ යටතේ පොලිස් ප්‍රධානීන් සමග තවමත් ජනතාවට ආරක්ෂාවක් තියනවා කියලා විශ්වාස කරන්න පුළුවන්ද? නෑ පැහැදිලිවම පොලිස්පතිවරයා මේ වෙනකොට
Clearly, the Inspector General of Police should resign. If not, we had decided at the cabinet meeting to request the president to replace this IGP and appoint a new Inspector General of Police.
විශේෂ අමාත්‍යවරයා වහාම මේ පොලිස්පතිවරයා වෙනුවට අලුත් නව පොලිස්පතිවරයෙක් පත් කරන්න. ඍජුවම මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ පොලිස්පතිවරයාට කියන්න ඕනේ. ඍජුවම මොකද ඔහුට තමයි දැනුම් දීලා තියෙන්නේ. මාවනල්ලේ
There was an incident in Mavanalla a few months back. After finding out about the gravity of the situation, I took steps to inform the relevant police officials and the other divisions, including the NIB, regarding this matter. I have received information and I am in the process of clarifying them. That certain suspects in the incident in Vanathavilluwa who were arrested, about 1 or 2 of them were released based on political influence. There is talk of such an incident. It is also said that it is being confirmed that one of these suspects that were released are among the suicide bombers in yesterday's incidents.
Parliamentarian Vijitha Herath expressed the following views at a media briefing convened by the Janatha Vimukthi Peramuna today.
As a party, we condemn this attack. The intelligence units received information in this regard, but decisions were not made at the right time. It was clear in the Prime Minister's speech yesterday that such information was received. It shows that the political leadership has not made the right decisions. The government is responsible for the security of the people. It is clear that they have not intervened to make decisions on the security of the people. They were too busy with the political power struggle. The people should be informed about who's behind this. It is not right to blame it on someone else. We were not told about this, but the information has reached a certain level of authority. It has stopped there. That does not justify anything. Make political decisions to expedite the investigations based on the information they received. The law should be enforced at least now. We call on them not to use this situation to fulfill their petty political agendas.
Governor of the Central Province Maitri Gunaratna called on the Anunayaka of the Malwatu chapter, Most Venerable Dimbul Kumbure Vimaladamma Thero.
This is something that has happened to the people of this country. So we have to set aside our differences when it comes to religion, caste or party. We are all human, so we should help them all. We heard that this was informed beforehand. We only thought about the high rollers. They were looking for narcotics. It's true that it is important, but it is also important to think about national security. So this is a result of not paying adequate attention to these issues.
A media briefing was also convened in Colombo today by the Socialist People's Front.
This document has spread throughout the country now. It has been reported in the media and I too have it with me. This has been sent to several security divisions. I cannot understand how the Prime Minister can say he does not know about it. This is something that a Prime Minister must know. If he took an interest in the work of the intelligence services and observed the information they were providing, he would have come across this everywhere he went. You need to take an interest and look into such things. Everyone in the country knows about this now. The fact that the Prime Minister says he is unaware raises suspicions regarding him, and that must be said. This is like trying to kill two birds with one stone. Through this, on one hand, he is trying to advance a conspiracy against the President. We can see that there is a conspiracy enveloping this chain of events, and as per the statement that was made by the Prime Minister.
A party leaders meeting was convened in Parliament today. The meeting was chaired by Speaker Karu Jayasuriya. Following the meeting, MP Mahinda Amaraweera expressed the following views.
The Inspector General of Police attended the meeting and presented facts about the situation in the country. Additionally, a decision was made to convene Parliament tomorrow. The Prime Minister and Leader of the Opposition will make their statements tomorrow. A debate will be held in Parliament the day after tomorrow.
ජනාධිපතිතුමා ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ එහෙම ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ ජනාධිපතිතුමා ඇවිල්ලාද කාටවත් චෝදනා කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැ ඉතින් චෝදනා කරන්න ඕනේ මේ බෝම්බ
There's nothing to blame on anyone. The blame should be on those who detonated the bombs. There's no need to put it on someone else and protect ourselves. We mostly spoke about not letting these things occur again. A program is on to give severe punishments to those who are behind these attacks.
Minister Sajid Premadasa visited the St. Anthony's Church in Kochikade to inspect the situation this morning.
The minister inquired into the damage caused to the church. Following the inspection, he spoke to the media. As the Ministry of Cultural Affairs, we will begin preparations from today to help reconstruct this sacred monument that was the target of a terrorist attack. We will not obstruct any legal or judicial action on the incident during the reconstructions. This church is a sacred place. It is an important place of worship. I pledge to the hundreds of thousands of Catholics across the country that I will begin the reconstruction of these places of worship and hand it over to the Catholic devotees in the country. That is the reason why I visited this location. After the police and other investigations into the matter have concluded, without causing hindrance to the investigations, we will obtain the advice of the Cardinal and reconstruct these holy places of worship. Thereafter, the minister also inspected the St. Sebastian's Church in Katuapitiya, Nigambo. Several ministers and MPs, including Harsha De Silva and Kavinda Jayawardena, were also present.
Addressing another media briefing convened today, UPFA MP SB Disanayaka had this to say.
We can see clearly that the government, specifically Minister Rajitha Senaratne and the Prime Minister, are attempting to place the responsibility for this on President Maithripala Sirisena's head. We all know that the President wanted to remove the IGP but could not as per the 19th Amendment. We also know that with regard to the plot to assassinate the President, there is a close connection between the police officer whose voice was heard on the recording and the IGP. We can see clearly now that this catastrophe befell us because this officer failed to act on this investigation despite all the senior DIGs, SPs, ASPs, OICs and other security divisions being informed of this. This IGP must resign immediately. Failing which, as the SLFP, we will speak with the joint opposition and swiftly put forward a motion in Parliament to remove him. We believe that the Speaker intervened greatly to appoint this person as the IGP whilst removing the several other senior officers. However, we believe that this time the UNP and the Prime Minister will call on him to resign immediately, taking into consideration this situation. Action can be taken against these persons under Section 5 of the PTA for concealing information.
පස්වෙනි වගන්තිය යටතේ තොරතුරු සැඟවීම අවශ්‍යයි නොදී සැඟවීම හරහා අපිට මේ අයට නඩු දාන්න පුළුවන්.
More than 290 people have now been confirmed to have lost their lives in the explosions that rocked the country on Easter Sunday.
People still flock to St. Sebastian's Church in Katuapitiya today looking for news on missing loved ones. While some were still searching for their loved ones, others gathered at funeral parlours to observe the final rites for those who lost their lives. The first of the series of explosions rocked St. Anthony's Church in Kochikade, Kotahena as Easter Sunday Mass was underway. Many of the devotees who had gathered there were wounded, while more than 25 people were killed.
During the Dutch time only they built this church without any differences. So when they come, they have their own way of worshipping. So that's why very important. This church is close to the heart of the people. Damage is massive. I asked people to calm down and just cooperate to settle the matters, just to pray, continue to pray for the victims.
Investigations are still underway at St. Sebastian's Church in Katuapitiya, Negombo. Whilst the identification of the dead is ongoing, families of the deceased were seen at the church premises today as well. A special meeting was held today regarding the final rites for the victims of the attack in Katuapitiya. Over 1,000 devotees were in the church when the explosion occurred and 106 worshippers were killed. Among the victims are 22 children. This footage was captured at the Zion Church in Batticaloa this morning. 28 people were killed in the suicide bomb attack on this church. 14 of them were children. Over 300 worshippers had gathered inside the church at the time of the attack. 57 people sustained severe injuries. In the Batticaloa town, white flags had been raised and shops were closed in mourning. Scores of people, including foreign nationals, were killed in the suicide bombings at the Shangri-La, Kingsbury and Cinnamon Grand hotels in Colombo. 3 Indians, a Portuguese, a Turk, 3 Britons and 2 persons with dual citizenship of the United States and the United Kingdom were among the foreign nationals killed in the attacks. The Foreign Affairs Ministry says 9 foreign nationals are still missing. Foreign media reports say that 3 children of the Danish billionaire fashion tycoon Anders Holst Poulsen were also killed in the attacks.
Soon after the bombings that rocked Sri Lanka on Easter Sunday, world leaders reached out to Sri Lanka to express their condolences as well as their solidarity. This was the same today as well.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry said today that Beijing will resolutely support Sri Lanka's efforts to safeguard security and stability after a series of deadly bombings. Foreign Ministry spokesman Geng Shuang confirmed Chinese citizens were among those killed or had gone missing, but he did not specify a number. 5 Chinese were also injured and are in a stable condition. Afghan Chief Executive Abdullah, chairing the Council of Ministers meeting, called it a terrorist incident and offered the country's condolences to the victims and their families. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe offered his condolences today to the victims of yesterday's blasts, which killed more than 200 people, including 1 Japanese national. French President Emmanuel Macron said in a Twitter message, quote, "Deep sorrow following the terrorist attacks against churches and hotels in Sri Lanka. We firmly condemn these heinous acts. All our solidarity with the people of Sri Lanka, and our thoughts go out to all victims' relatives on this Easter day." Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison said in a tweet, quote, "I condemn the devastating and horrific Easter terrorist attacks on innocents in churches and hotels in Sri Lanka. I've been taking briefings this afternoon on the situation from DFAT. Call 1300-555-135 if you're seeking information on friends or relatives travelling in Sri Lanka," unquote.
The international community echoed the sorrow of Sri Lanka in a display of solidarity after yesterday's terror attacks.
The Eiffel Tower turned off its lights last midnight to honour the victims of the Sri Lanka bombings. In addition, the Sri Lankan community living in Paris held a vigil in the early hours of today after the lights were turned off at the Eiffel Tower to honour the victims of the bombings. Buddhist monks in India's temple town of Bodh Gaya held prayers and performed rituals for those who lost their lives in the bomb blasts yesterday. The Santiago Bernabeu held a minute's silence before La Liga match week 33 fixture between Real Madrid and Athletic Bilbao for the victims of the attacks in Sri Lanka. The city hall in Tel Aviv lit up with the Sri Lankan flag last night in a display of solidarity after the horrific terror attacks that claimed more than 200 lives, injuring over 400 innocent civilians. Also, Christian tourists outside Jerusalem's Holy Sepulchre Church condemned a series of deadly bomb attacks in Sri Lanka. India's world-famous sand sculpture artist Sundar Patinaika expressed sorrow to the victims of Sri Lanka as follows.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News for tonight. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Dasniya Powder.
And I'm Ramesh Bandara. Stay safe, stay strong, stay united, Sri Lanka. Good night.